Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Stay with me. Come and play with me. Run away with me. Just you and me.
Hi, I'm Peter Hatzoglu, and this is the Yangtze River. So to begin, I'll give you some general information on the Yangtze. The Yangtze River is the longest river in Asia and the third longest in the world. It is the largest river to flow entirely through one country, which is China. It also plays a large role in the history, culture, and economy of China. For instance, the prosperous Yangtze River Delta generates as much as 20% of China's GDP. Additionally, the Yangtze River Basin is home to 1/3 of China's population, roughly 450 million people, which is about 10 times more people than Australia has. However, while all this sounds good and well, in recent years the river has suffered from industrial pollution, agricultural runoff, siltation and loss of wetlands and lakes, which worsens the overall health of the river. In mid-2014, the Chinese government announced it was building a multi-tier transport network, compromising railways, roads and airports to create a new economic belt alongside the river. Also, the Three Gorges Dam on the Yangtze River is the largest hydroelectric power station in the world. Alright, on to the location of the Yangtze. So the Yangtze is located in China, which if you've been living under a fairly large rock is in Asia. It flows for 6,300 kilometers from the glaciers on the Qinghai Tibet Plateau in Qinghai, eastward across southwest, central and eastern China, before emptying into the East China Sea at Shanghai. Major cities based in the Yangtze include Shanghai, Nanjing, Wuhan and Chongqing. Sorry for my poor pronunciation there. These four cities in conjunction have a population of roughly 45 million people, almost double Australia's population. The Yangtze also runs through 7 provinces. To summarise the location of the Yangtze, here are a few dot points. So to begin the river system, we'll look at location. Right, so as I've already outlined, the Yangtze is located in China. Flows for 6,300 kilometers from the glaciers on the Qinghai Tibet Plateau in Qinghai, eastward across southwest, central and eastern China, before emptying into the East China Sea at Shanghai. So the Yangtze has over 700 tributaries, with a total catchment area of 1.8 million square kilometers, which is 19% of China's total area. This mainly lies in the subtropical zone. The Yangtze's main tributaries are the Yalong River, the Minjiang River, the Daduhe River, the Tuojiang River, the Jialing River, the Qingjiang, and finally the Xiangjiang. And I probably didn't say any of those right, so I'm sorry. The Yangtze River is replenished by a variety of artificial and natural sources. An example of artificial replenishment in the Yangtze is the 400,000 rare fish placed into the river by the Chinese government. This occurred on the 23rd of April in 2007. Natural replenishment occurs in the Yangtze River in May, June, July and August when it's the monsoon season. The features of a monsoon season are that it's hot, meaning that the ice in the Qinghai Tibetan Plateau becomes melted, flowing into rivers such as the Yangtze to replenish it. It's also wet in the monsoon season, meaning that rivers and particularly the Yangtze get a lot of rain. So the feature I've chosen is the Yangtze River Delta. The Yangtze River Delta is located at the point which the water from the Yangtze meets the East China Sea. This is near Shanghai. The Yangtze is also the third largest carrier of sediment when compared to the world's other major rivers. Therefore, the deposition of the delta is high. Due to high deposition, the Yangtze River Delta advances an estimated mile into the sea every 70 years, which is approximately 2 kilometers per century. The Yangtze River Delta is one of the most densely populated areas around the world and has one of the world's biggest cities at its shores, Shanghai. Having extremely fertile soil, the Yangtze River Delta abundantly produces grain, cotton, hemp, and tea. The delta can also have 2 harvests per year due to its soil fertility. So the Yangtze has a variety of users. Some of the users include river cruisers, industry, poor western population, the prosperous wealthy eastern population, farmers, and the transport industry. As you can see in this image, river cruisers are a significant user group of the Yangtze River. They do cause pollution in the Yangtze and use it to, well, I guess, move their boats around. So the second user group I've identified on the Yangtze is industry. This particular group emits a huge amount of pollution into the Yangtze. They use the Yangtze to firstly dispose of their waste and also to transport the goods they create. Which brings us on to the third user group I've identified, the transport industry. This group uses the Yangtze to transport the goods they carry from point A to point B internationally and domestically. The Yangtze is one of the busiest waterways in the world, and it is because of this transport industry. The next user group is that of the poor western population. They basically use the Yangtze as a lifeline for both their food and water. However, as seen in this image, waste finding its way into the river is creating huge issues in the water quality. In contrast, the prosperous, wealthy eastern population use the Yangtze as a means to receive goods from upstream. Specifically, cities such as Shanghai get their power from upstream from the Three Gorges Dam. So the sixth and the final user group I've identified on the Yangtze is farmers, mainly fish farmers. Fish farming is the largest type of farming in and around the Yangtze. 1/3 of animal protein eaten in China is of freshwater fish, and over half comes from the Yangtze fisheries, meaning there's a big industry there with lots of demand. So the Yangtze River is managed by a variety of organizations, to mention a few: the Chinese government, the China Three Gorges Corporation, and the WWF, World Wildlife Fund. However, it is true to say that the Yangtze is poorly managed. The Chinese government see the money rather than the impact rapid industrialization and pollution to the Yangtze may have on future generations, meaning that they are somewhat pulling a blind eye over polluters. So the WWF has set up a group called the IRBM, Integrated River Basin Management, which acts as a stepping stone to the Chinese government in order to influence national policy on the use of waterways. So this image is an example of how the IRBM are trying to reconnect lakes with the Yangtze. The IRBM try to influence decision making using the following technique. Please pause and read these. So there really are a lot of conflicts over the use of the Yangtze. However, the one I've outlined is the rapid industrialization and the ever-increasing amount of pollution flowing into the Yangtze. So to begin, the Yangtze Basin faces extraordinary pollution as a result of rapid, large-scale industrial and domestic development. According to the Chinese environmentalist Dai Qing, the Yangtze used to be so clear that you could see a pen sink to the bottom. Now it has become so dirty that it is not fit for drinking. Over the last 50 years, there has been a 73% increase in pollution levels from hundreds of cities in the main stem of the Yangtze River. The annual discharge of sewage and industrial waste in the river has reached about 25 billion tonnes, which is 42% of the country's total sewage discharge and 45% of its total industrial discharge. So I've identified 3 different viewpoints in this conflict. The first is that of the environmentalist, the second is that of the industrialist, and the third is that of the Chinese government. So the first viewpoint in this conflict is that of the environmentalist, such as Yangtze, as previously mentioned. He wants there to be no pollution into the Yangtze, as it is such a large part of China's economy and society and needs to be sustained. Although serious polluters of the Yangtze have been shut down by Chinese authorities, there aren't any restrictions in place to stop them from moving further upstream. If the Yangtze is becoming more and more polluted further and further upstream, it will cause upheaval amongst the lower socioeconomic people who live upstream, and put strain on their lives, as the resources the Yangtze provide them are not able to be employed. The second viewpoint is that of the industrialist. She sees the money able to be made from the Yangtze. For instance, the China Three Gorges Corporation. They decided to exploit the resources of the Yangtze, almost completely disregarding the implications it may have had on the river and wider ecosystem. And finally, the third viewpoint is that of the Chinese government. Although the Chinese government want to be ecologically friendly and practice sustainable methods of using the Yangtze, they too have seen the money in it. Thus, they are somewhat pulling a blind eye to polluters if they are contributing to the economy. It is the Chinese government's job to find a sustainable method of using the Yangtze. Although they are not currently managing the river well, they have made some effort to limit pollution, however still need to ensure much more sustainable methods of managing the Yangtze. Here's a short news clip discussing pollution in the Yangtze.
The Chinese regime's drive for rapid industrialization has come at a cost to the country's natural resources. Water protection authorities say more than 33 billion tons of waste have been discharged into the country's largest river every year. While measures have been taken to address water pollution, environmentalists say more still needs to be done.
Environmentalists are calling on Chinese authorities to protect the Yangtze River. It comes after a Water Protection Bureau revealed this month that a massive amount of sewage is discharged into the river every year. Since 2006, more than 30 billion tons of sewage flow into the Yangtze River annually. In 2010, that amount increased to 33.9 billion tons, according to the Yangtze River Water Resources Protection Bureau. The bulk of the waste comes from factories along the river's middle and lower reaches. Environmentalist Yang Xin says authorities need to step up waste management to protect this major water resource.
The Yangtze River supports 400 million people and nearly half the country's economy. Each year, more waste is discharged into the river. We've continuously said that the river needs to be better protected, including improved oversight of waste management to lower the amount of discharge.
Chinese authorities say they've been closing down factories with poor waste management systems along the Yangtze River. But geologist Gao Junfeng with the Chinese Academy of Sciences says that may not be enough.
Heavy chemical industrial plants are too close to the river and affect the water quality. Although some serious polluters have been shut down, there's no guarantee they won't relocate up the river. Also, chemical fertilizer used in farming along the river has also gotten out of control.
The Yangtze River is the longest river in Asia. It flows through 19 provinces in China and accounts for 40% of the country's water resources. Despite becoming heavily polluted with China's industrialization, authorities claim water quality of the Yangtze River is generally better than other Chinese rivers.
Okay, now to come back to my voice. So if I were to manage the Yangtze, I would ensure that clear policies were in place about pollution. I would charge heavy taxes on emitting industrial waste into any ecological system without sustainable practice methods. Additionally, I would apply WorkSafe area check authority, much like Australia's WorkSafe, where their job will be to thoroughly explore an industrial estate to see where they're emitting their waste and how. I would give them the authority to shut businesses down. I would also introduce zoning where industrial estates are allowed to be. I would create these zones away from water sources and potential fertile lands which may be used for either residential or farming purposes in the future. With the amount of human intervention in the Yangtze as is now, the Yangtze is not sustainable. As we have previously discussed, there has been a significant rise in the pollution over the last 50 years, 73% in the main stem of the Yangtze alone. If this continues to rise, the Yangtze will simply have too much human intervention and cease to exist in a productive manner. Rather, it will contribute to rise the already high levels of disease in the water and simply not allow lower socioeconomic Chinese people to live, affecting the whole Chinese economy and creating water issues much like those in Africa, ultimately depleting the Chinese economy and creating significant issues for China's future. Okay, so that was my Yangtze River project. Thank you, Mr. Wismer and Mr. Rochester. I hope you have fun marking my project and have a good time at uni. Bye.